Imagine meeting someone who is kind, polite, intelligent, and seemingly perfect. They smile warmly. They speak softly. They never lose their temper. Everyone who meets them walks away with the same thought. What a wonderful person. Now imagine discovering that behind that smile lies one of the most dangerous minds ever written in fiction. That person is Johan Liebert. Unlike many anime villains, Johan doesn't rely on supernatural powers. He doesn't overpower people with brute strength. He doesn't need an army. Most of the time, he doesn't even need violence. Instead, Johan uses something far more powerful: the human mind. Monster isn't terrifying because of action scenes. It's terrifying because it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How well do we really know the people around us? Can an ordinary person be persuaded to do something terrible? Why do intelligent people sometimes trust the wrong person? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, could someone like Johan exist in real life? The answer is both yes and no. No, because Johan is an extraordinary fictional character whose abilities are dramatized for storytelling. But yes, because many of the psychological principles he uses are grounded in real human behavior. This video isn't about teaching manipulation. It's about understanding why manipulation works, how people become vulnerable to it, and how you can protect yourself. Because understanding darkness is often the first step toward avoiding it. One of Johan's greatest strengths isn't intelligence, it's first impressions. Think about the first time someone meets Johan. He's calm, well-dressed, soft-spoken, respectful. Nothing about him appears threatening. This immediately creates trust. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. Human beings make surprisingly quick judgments about strangers. Within seconds, we begin forming impressions based on appearance, posture, facial expressions, tone of voice, and confidence. These first impressions aren't always accurate, but our brains rely on them because they save time. Thousands of years ago, making quick judgments helped our ancestors survive. If something looked dangerous, react first. Think later. Today, that same shortcut can become a weakness. A confident person often appears more trustworthy. A well-dressed person often appears more competent. A calm speaker often appears more intelligent. Notice something important. None of these qualities actually prove honesty, yet our brains frequently connect them together. Johan understands this perfectly. He never tries to appear frightening. He appears safe. And that makes him far more dangerous. The frightening reality is that many manipulative people don't look suspicious. They often look exactly like someone you would gladly trust. Psychology has a name for this tendency: the halo effect. Imagine meeting someone who is extremely attractive. Without realizing it, you may also assume they're kind, honest, successful, competent, even though you have no evidence. One positive quality creates an invisible halo that influences your judgment of everything else. Johan constantly benefits from this psychological shortcut. People see his politeness. They assume morality. They see confidence. They assume wisdom. They see kindness. They assume innocence. This doesn't happen because people are foolish. It happens because the human brain constantly searches for patterns. Patterns help us make quick decisions. But quick decisions are not always correct. The next time you admire someone, ask yourself an important question. Do I admire who they are, or who I imagine them to be? That single question can protect you from many bad judgments. One of the biggest misconceptions about Monster is that Johan somehow controls people's minds. He doesn't. He doesn't hypnotize people. He doesn't magically erase free will. Instead, he identifies emotions that already exist: fear, shame, loneliness, hatred, hopelessness. Then he quietly pushes those emotions in a particular direction. This reflects something psychology has observed for years. People are easier to influence when they are emotionally vulnerable. Notice that word carefully. Influence, not control. Human beings still make their own choices, but our decisions become less balanced when strong emotions take over. Think about your own life. Have you ever made a decision while extremely angry, only to regret it later? Or bought something simply because you were feeling lonely? Or stayed in an unhealthy friendship because you feared being alone? Those aren't signs of weakness. They're reminders that emotions shape judgment. Johan succeeds because he understands emotional vulnerabilities better than almost anyone else. Real manipulators often do something similar. They don't create every weakness. They discover weaknesses that already exist, which is why self-awareness becomes one of the greatest forms of protection. If you understand your own fears, they're much harder for someone else to exploit. One of the most important themes in Monster isn't murder, it's isolation. Again and again, the story shows people who feel invisible, forgotten, rejected, alone. Modern psychology has repeatedly found that prolonged loneliness can influence mental health, trust, stress levels, and decision-making. Humans are social creatures. Our brains evolved expecting connection. When that connection disappears, many things begin changing. Hope becomes harder to maintain. Negative thoughts become louder. People may become more willing to trust the first person who offers acceptance, even if that person has harmful intentions. Johan understands this. He often appears when someone feels completely alone. Not because loneliness automatically creates evil. It doesn't. Most lonely people are kind people who simply need support. But loneliness can make someone more vulnerable to influence. That's an important distinction. Monster isn't saying lonely people become monsters. It's saying loneliness can weaken psychological defenses, which is why healthy relationships matter so much. Sometimes the strongest protection against manipulation isn't intelligence. It's having people who genuinely care about you. Every person wants something. Safety, purpose, recognition, belonging, hope. These aren't weaknesses. They're fundamental human needs. Psychologists have proposed different models explaining motivation, but one common idea remains consistent. People are driven by needs that extend beyond survival. Johan recognizes these needs. He doesn't offer money first. He often offers understanding. He makes people feel seen. He listens. He notices what others ignore. That alone can create a powerful emotional bond. Think about the people you trust most. Many of them probably aren't the smartest people you know. They're the people who made you feel understood. Feeling understood is incredibly powerful. But it also reminds us to stay thoughtful. Just because someone understands your emotions doesn't automatically mean they have your best interests at heart. Empathy can heal. It can also be imitated. That's why actions over time matter more than first impressions or beautiful words. A person's character is revealed by consistent behavior, not a single conversation. The greatest danger in Monster isn't Johan himself. It's how easily ordinary human psychology can be misunderstood or exploited. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. What makes Johan terrifying isn't that he understands evil. It's that he understands ordinary people. Because ordinary people don't become dangerous overnight. Most of the time, it's a slow process. One decision, one lie, one fear, one compromise, until one day they barely recognize themselves. Imagine you're walking home at night. You hear footsteps behind you. Instantly, your heart beats faster. Your breathing changes. Your muscles tense. Your brain stops thinking about tomorrow's homework, your job, or what you'll eat for dinner. Instead, it focuses on one question. Am I safe? This is one of the oldest survival systems in the human brain. Fear exists to protect us. Without fear, our ancestors wouldn't have survived. The problem is that fear doesn't always tell the truth. Sometimes fear protects us. Sometimes it deceives us. When people become afraid, they often stop asking questions. They begin searching for certainty instead. This is where manipulation becomes easier. Throughout history, fear has persuaded people to support ideas they normally would have rejected. Fear tells us, act now, think later. Monster quietly demonstrates this again and again. Johan rarely forces fear. He allows people to discover it themselves. Then he watches how they respond. In real life, fear can influence many everyday decisions. Buying something because you fear missing out. Staying silent because you fear rejection. Following the crowd because you fear standing alone. Fear isn't weakness. Ignoring fear is dangerous, but believing every fearful thought without questioning it can also lead us in the wrong direction. The healthiest response isn't to eliminate fear. It's to ask, what evidence supports what I'm feeling? Imagine someone tells you that person is dangerous. From that moment forward, every strange behavior suddenly seems like proof. If they become quiet, they're hiding something. If they smile, they're pretending. If they disagree, they're hostile. The opposite can happen too. If someone tells you he's a wonderful person, you begin ignoring warning signs. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. We naturally search for information that supports what we already believe while overlooking information that challenges it. Johan quietly takes advantage of this. Once people decide he's kind, many stop questioning him. Not because they're unintelligent, because that's how human psychology often works. The lesson isn't to become suspicious of everyone. It's to stay curious. Whenever you're absolutely certain about someone, ask yourself, what evidence would change my mind? If the answer is nothing, you may no longer be thinking objectively. Human beings don't only search for truth, we search for meaning. We want our lives to matter. We want our suffering to make sense. We want hope that tomorrow can become better. Psychologists have long observed that people often organize their lives around beliefs and values that give them purpose. Those beliefs might come from family, religion, personal goals, friendships, or a cause larger than themselves. Johan understands something frightening. If someone loses all sense of purpose, they become far easier to influence. A person who believes nothing matters may eventually ask, "Why should I care what happens?" That question is one of the central themes of Monster. Not because the series promotes hopelessness, but because it warns us about it. Hope isn't simply a pleasant emotion, it's a psychological resource. People with hope are generally more resilient. They're more likely to recover after setbacks. They're more willing to keep trying. Take hope away, and many people stop fighting long before they've actually lost. Every person carries a story. I'm smart. I'm unlucky. I'm a failure. I'm strong. I'm invisible. Whether those stories are accurate or not, they influence behavior. Psychologists often describe identity as one of the strongest predictors of long-term habits. If someone genuinely believes, "I'm the kind of person who never succeeds," they may stop trying before they've even begun. Not because they lack ability, but because their identity has already decided the outcome. Monster explores this repeatedly. Characters struggle not only against external danger, but against the stories they believe about themselves. This applies to all of us. If you've spent years telling yourself, "I'm bad at making friends," or "I'll never be confident," those beliefs can quietly shape your actions. The good news? Identity isn't fixed. It changes through repeated experiences and repeated choices. Instead of asking, "Who am I?" ask, "Who am I becoming?" That single change shifts your focus from the past to the future. One uncomfortable truth in psychology is this: most people don't wake up planning to become cruel. Instead, small compromises slowly become larger ones. I'll lie just this once. I'll ignore this problem. It's not my responsibility. One small decision rarely changes everything, but repeated decisions shape character. This is why habits matter. Every action teaches your brain something. If you repeatedly choose honesty, honesty becomes easier. If you repeatedly avoid responsibility, avoiding responsibility becomes easier. Character isn't built during one dramatic moment. It's built during thousands of ordinary moments that nobody else notices. That's one reason Monster feels so realistic. Its greatest horror isn't supernatural evil. It's showing how everyday choices can slowly transform a person. One interesting habit Johan often displays is silence. Most people become uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it. They explain too much. They reveal information they never intended to share. Psychologists know that silence can influence conversations. It gives people time to think. It encourages others to continue speaking. Sometimes, the person asking the fewest questions learns the most. This doesn't mean staying silent all the time. Healthy communication requires honesty and openness, but it reminds us that listening carefully is often more valuable than constantly talking. The best observers usually speak less and notice more. Many viewers describe Johan as one of anime's smartest characters. Perhaps. But intelligence and wisdom aren't identical. Intelligence helps solve problems. Wisdom helps choose which problems are worth solving. Intelligence can build powerful technology. Wisdom decides how that technology should be used. Intelligence can persuade people. Wisdom asks whether persuasion is ethical. Monster constantly explores this difference. Knowledge without compassion becomes dangerous. Logic without empathy becomes cold. Power without responsibility becomes destructive. Perhaps the greatest lesson Johan teaches isn't how intelligent a person can become, but what happens when intelligence loses its moral compass. Because a brilliant mind without empathy may achieve extraordinary things, yet still leave destruction behind. And that may be the most frightening lesson Monster has to offer. Up until now, we've talked about fear, identity, loneliness, and manipulation. But perhaps the biggest question Monster asks isn't how someone like Johan manipulates people. It's something much more uncomfortable. Was Johan born a monster, or did he become one? That question has fascinated psychologists, philosophers, and scientists for generations. And while Monster never gives a simple answer, maybe that's exactly the point. One of the oldest debates in psychology is whether personality is shaped more by biology or by experience. Some people are naturally more outgoing. Some are naturally more cautious. Some have a stronger tendency toward impulsive behavior. Biology matters. But environment matters too. Family, childhood, trauma, relationships, culture. None of these alone completely determine who someone becomes. Instead, personality develops through a complex interaction of many influences. Monster refuses to reduce Johan to a simple explanation. Instead, it asks us to think about how extreme experiences can shape a person without claiming that everyone with similar experiences will become the same. This is an important distinction. Many people experience terrible childhoods and grow into compassionate adults. Others experience relatively stable lives and still make harmful choices. Human beings are not equations. Psychology can explain patterns. It cannot perfectly predict individuals. That uncertainty is one of the reasons people are so fascinating. One of the biggest misconceptions about psychology is that trauma automatically creates dangerous people. It doesn't. Trauma increases risk for many difficulties, but it does not determine someone's future. Many trauma survivors become incredibly resilient, empathetic, and compassionate. Others struggle with anxiety, depression, or trust. Every person's response is different. Monster reminds us that pain affects everyone differently. Some people become more protective because they suffered. Others build emotional walls. Some lose hope. Some dedicate their lives to helping others avoid the same pain. The important lesson isn't to judge people by what happened to them. It's to recognize that healing is possible. Your past influences you. It does not completely define you. Throughout history, charismatic leaders have inspired both incredible progress and devastating destruction. Charisma itself is neutral. It isn't automatically good or bad. Psychologists often describe charisma as a combination of confidence, communication, emotional awareness, and the ability to make others feel important. Notice something interesting. People don't usually follow someone because that person is the loudest. They follow people who seem certain. Certainty is comforting, especially during uncertain times. When people feel confused, a confident voice becomes attractive, even if that confidence is misplaced. That's why critical thinking matters so much. Confidence is not evidence. A calm voice is not proof. A persuasive speech is not the same as truth. Whenever someone seems completely certain about everything, ask yourself, what evidence supports their claims? Healthy skepticism protects us from blind admiration. One of the darkest ideas explored in Monster is nihilism, the belief that nothing truly matters. If life has no meaning, why care about morality? Why protect others? Why continue trying? These questions appear throughout philosophy as well as psychology. Many people experience periods where life feels meaningless, especially after loss, failure, or disappointment. But psychology also shows that meaning can be rebuilt. Meaning doesn't have to come from one grand purpose. It can come from helping a friend, learning a skill, building a family, creating art, improving yourself little by little. One meaningful conversation can change someone's entire day. One kind action can change someone's memory forever. Meaning is often found in small moments rather than dramatic achievements. Monster contrasts hopelessness with the possibility of human connection, and that contrast is one of its greatest strengths. If Johan represents despair, then Dr. Tenma represents hope. What's fascinating is that Tenma isn't stronger. He isn't smarter in every situation. He doesn't manipulate people. Instead, he refuses to give up on the value of human life. Psychologically, Tenma represents something important. Your values shape your decisions. Two people can face the exact same situation and choose completely different paths because they believe different things. One chooses revenge. Another chooses forgiveness. One chooses selfishness. Another chooses compassion. Neither decision happens by accident. They grow from deeply held beliefs. This is why examining your own values matters, because your values quietly guide your choices every single day. By now you might be wondering, if people like Johan can exist, how do I protect myself? Psychology offers several practical habits. First, don't confuse confidence with honesty. Someone can speak confidently and still be wrong. Second, pay attention to consistent actions instead of beautiful words. Promises are easy. Patterns are harder to fake. Third, notice how someone reacts when they don't get what they want. People often reveal their character during disappointment more than during success. Fourth, build healthy relationships. Isolation makes people more vulnerable to manipulation. Having trusted friends or family members gives you different perspectives and helps you notice warning signs you might miss alone. Finally, know yourself. Understand your own fears, your insecurities, your desire for approval. The more aware you are of your own emotions, the harder they become for someone else to exploit. Self-awareness is one of the strongest forms of psychological defense. Perhaps the title monster doesn't refer to only one person. Perhaps it refers to something every human being carries. The ability to choose kindness or cruelty, hope or despair, compassion or indifference. Psychology doesn't claim that humans are entirely good or entirely evil. Most people are capable of both. Our environment matters. Our experiences matter. But so do our choices. Every day we decide what kind of person we're becoming. Maybe not through dramatic life or death situations, but through ordinary moments. How we treat strangers. How we respond to criticism. Whether we tell the truth. Whether we take responsibility. Character isn't revealed only during extraordinary events. It's built during ordinary ones. People often ask why Johan Liebert is considered one of the greatest villains in anime. The answer isn't because he's the strongest, or because he's the smartest. It's because he feels disturbingly possible. He reminds us that human psychology is both powerful and fragile. That loneliness can change people. That fear can cloud judgment. That charisma can hide dangerous intentions. But Monster doesn't leave us with despair. It leaves us with a choice. To think critically instead of blindly following. To seek understanding instead of quick judgment. To build meaningful relationships instead of isolation. To choose empathy without abandoning reason. And most importantly, to remember that the greatest battle isn't against someone like Johan. It's against the parts of ourselves that fear, hate, despair, or give up. Because every day, we are writing the story of the person we're becoming. The question is, what kind of story will yours be? If you enjoyed this psychological analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment which anime character you'd like to see next. Until next time, the strongest mind isn't the one that understands darkness. It's the one that chooses the light even after seeing it.